Welcome everybody to what month are we in? September Ask Me Anything sessions here at RentPrep. I'm Andrew Schultz, community manager here at RentPrep. I'm also a licensed real estate broker with over 14 years of experience in the property management and rental property industries. I am going to go ahead and add Josh to the call. Josh is the marketing
manager. Director, manager.
I'll give you a promotion.
Whatever you'd like to call me.
We'll call you the director. We'll give you the promotion. Josh is the marketing director, marketing manager over at RentPrep. Josh, how are you doing today?
I am good, Andrew. And as I was just talking to you about, I'm back in Buffalo. I was in San Antonio for the first time ever in 100-degree weather with high 80s to 90s humidity. So it was.
That just sounds miserable. That sounds so hot.
If you didn't get out in the morning to do any, like I went for a run a couple times, and if you didn't get out before 9:30, you were toast. You did not want to be running in that. But it is good to be back in Buffalo in the fall weather.
Yeah, I mean, like we complain about. Obviously, winter's coming our way, and we know that. Yeah. We complain about the winter weather here in Buffalo a lot. I know, at least I do. I'm not good at cold weather. I'm really not. Like, we whine about the weather here in Buffalo when it gets cold and when we get a bunch of snow dumped on us, but I don't really think I would want to be walking around in 120-degree weather with 95% humidity either. That's pretty rough too.
No, and I mean this is September. This is September for them. Like,
right.
What and it granted, it was like, I believe it was like 12 degrees higher on average than normal temperatures for this time of year for them. But I mean, it is hot.
Yeah. And no matter how you slice it, it's hot.
It did give me a good perspective though. I was thinking about things from just like even a property management perspective in different climates and different environments. And like we visited, a friend of mine, and they had the AC was set to like 78, and that felt like it was cool. And it's definitely interesting to step out and just kind of get a different perspective of how you have to manage properties, how areas are, the different things they have to do that are just different than where we're from.
Yeah, definitely. Like we see it all the time, even in like the RentPrep for Landlords Facebook group, but even some of the other property management groups I'm in, there's little weird regional things. Like, for instance, in Buffalo, we have basements. Most every house has a basement here. And generally that's where your water meter and your hot water tank are going to be located. Maybe your washer dryer might be down there. You go to Florida or Texas or someplace like that.
Even Texas, yeah, they didn't have.
More often than not, they don't have the basement, and then the water meter is actually mounted in the ground out in front yard. Which, if you tried to do that in Buffalo, it's just never going to work. You're going to have blown water mains or blown water meters all over the place as soon as we get the first freeze cycle. Yeah. So it's just weird, like the considerations that we have here versus the considerations they have there. Like AC is not a mandatory thing here in Western New York, not New York State, but there are some states that air conditioning is mandatory just because of the temperatures. So it's a very different perspective on landlording and property management in other areas.
For sure. All right. Do I look tan at all? Not really, right?
No, not really. Not any more than usual, I don't think.
I was a little bit more tan. Well, according to my girlfriend, I was more tan, but I guess it doesn't really show through on the camera. So
you've just reverted back to Buffalo beige. It's the color we all get during the fall and winter months.
As soon as I got back, I turned back to my pasty self. Yep. But all right, well, why don't we got our list of questions here. Yeah. We got our Facebook ones, we've got our form submission ones. So why don't we jump in, and let's start with a question from Joseph. Joseph asks, I am an independent property manager, mostly handling STR, short-term rentals in Los Angeles. My screen, I have it minimized on the left. I am getting my real estate license so I can be legal and take on long-term rentals. Do I need to get with a broker and pay them, or is there a way to bypass them and manage via my own company?
So I don't know what the rules are in California. I can tell you that in the state of New York, you cannot go from no license to fully licensed broker without having substantial experience, like a couple years, actually probably more than a couple years of experience. I'd have to look at the licensing guidelines to really know. But generally the progression here in New York is unlicensed to salesperson and then salesperson to broker. And that's usually a couple year progression. And it's based off of some different criteria. I'm not going to get into it. It's kind of getting into the weeds on it. But if you're going to manage property for another person and you're going to collect a fee for managing that property in New York State, you either need to be a direct on the staff employee, or you need to be a licensed broker or a licensed real estate agent working under a broker that knows that you're doing property management activities. So that is required here. There's licensing for New York State for property management. I would assume it's going to be the same in California. Most states have some sort of qualification or licensing that you have to have in order to do property management.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
actually, I think he had a second one too. Let's jump to scaling property management.
Yeah, company. I think it's question 6 on here. Okay. So Joseph asks again, any tips on scaling into my own property management company? I currently manage 4 long-term rentals that I own and manage 13 short-term rentals for others, but I am evolving into long-term rentals for the other owners. I know the basics, but I want to scale to the next level. So any tips on scaling?
So stay as organized as you can is probably the best possible advice I can give you, and make sure that you are not cutting yourself short on anything. Specifically what I'm talking about is charge what you need to charge, because your clients want the best possible rate, but they also want you to be here today, tomorrow, and into the future. And if you're not charging appropriately, you're not going to be here tomorrow and into the future. And that's going to be an issue for your clients. So yeah, there's a balancing act there, but make sure that you're charging what's fair for your services so that you can continue to operate. Staying organized is critical. Staying organized is it's the biggest problem in property management. It's the biggest problem in landlording. Any private landlord will tell you the same thing, because more often than not, the clients that we pick up are long-term landlords, long-term rental landlords that it's gotten to be too much. And now the paperwork is overwhelming. Whatever, things are starting to come apart at the seams. That's generally when we step in as a property manager. That's a lot of the clients that we take on. So if you're not organized, you're not going to be able to organize somebody else's chaos. And that's 90% of property management, is organizing somebody else's chaos. So I would say, like, as far as my 2 biggest tips, stay as organized as you possibly can and make sure that you're charging appropriately for your services. And then in terms of like scaling or finding new clients, the best possible thing that I did was get into networking groups. Bigger Pockets has great meetups. As a matter of fact, Bigger Pockets meetups are probably one of the best things if you're looking to find investor clients to help you grow your property management business. That's actually where I met Steve originally, the CEO at RentPrep. Steve and I originally met at a Bigger Pockets meeting.
Oh wow!
A lot of years ago.
I did not know that.
That's how Steve and I met originally. I was just getting into the property management industry, and we were at a stage where we were trying to figure out, just like we get on the RentPrep for Landlords group, we had a lot of people asking, or we get a lot of people asking, how do I run a credit and background check? And I had the same question, being a young property manager without a ton of experience. And Steve happened to be giving a presentation at, I'm pretty sure it was a Bigger Pockets meeting. It might have been one of our local real estate meetups, but I'm almost certain it was Bigger Pockets. And honestly, the rest is history. I've been a RentPrep client for 14 or 15 years now, and been working with RentPrep on the podcast and stuff for quite a while as well. So networking meetings are absolutely worth it. I know they suck. I know they're not fun to go to because it's already 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. You're home. You just want to put on sweatpants and relax. They're absolutely worth it. Every single time I go to a networking meeting, I come out the other side of it, usually in a better mood, and typically with a couple new names and phone numbers in my cell phone. So those are the things that I would recommend.
Cool. Okay, let's mix it up. Let's do a Facebook question. Let's do this one from Michaela. Question: I have a new tenant that wants to move in October 20th. So when does the lease start then? Will it go 20th to the 19th of the next month? I'm confused as well. I'm planning to ask for prorated rent for October, only 1/3 of the rent deposit and the full rent for November. Please advise that you would do what you would do in the same situation. My rental is located in Chicago, Illinois. So she's prorating October because October is not full. Then wouldn't technically the lease for November start on the 1st of November if she's only going to charge a prorated rent from October for the rest of October? I feel like she might be tripping that up a little bit.
What we do in our office, and you got to check your state law because sometimes there'll be a state law on something like this. But the way that we do it in our office is, for instance, if we have someone that moves in the middle of September, like September 15th, we write the lease from September 15th, 2023 through September 30th.
Mhm.
Are there 30 or 31 days? 30 days in September. So we'll write the lease through September 30th of September 2024. So it's actually like 12 and a half month lease.
Right.
And again, that's where I say sometimes you need to check your state laws because you might not be able to do a 12 and a half. You may have to round it down to 11 and a half. It just depends on what the rules are in your state. And then typically we will collect the prorated amount and the first full month at the same time. So if someone's moving in the 15th of the month, we're going to collect that half month and their full first month's rent, their actual full first month's rent. So that prorated September and all of October, as well as the security deposit prior to someone moving in.
Got it. Yeah.
There are different ways to do that though. I mean, some people will write it from the 20th to the 19th of October the following year. It just depends on how you want to write it. My preference is always to have end dates be the last day of a month.
Yeah. What if you just add like an addendum into the lease that says, oh, during the period of October 20th to November 1st, they're paying this amount, and then the rest, each following month, preceding month you'll pay this amount. I don't know, that's probably the hardest way to do it, but
it's doable that way.
I
though.
feel like
like
you can
do it. Yeah, we just throw it right in the last paragraph of our lease is a text box that we can type into for additional terms and conditions. We would probably just list the prorated rent for the first for the half month in that box, and then honestly, as long as the maths out at the end of the day, most people don't typically care that deeply about it. And as long as your tenant has what they need to be able to go online to call their utility companies and establish whatever they need to for utilities, which is going to be a lease with their name and the address and the start date on it, then you should be in good shape.
Yeah. I've had, I know for a few times I've moved in, there was still kind of construction going on. So they allowed us to live in the property, but they ended up prorating the first month when the construction was still taking place, just as like a courtesy kind of, hey, like we're going to be coming and going. Like we know you need to be in there. This was back in college too. So I'm sure it was more consistent with the fact that school was starting and like you have a place to live and you were told this date, but then there's still going to be construction. So yeah, I've had a nice situation. Yeah, that it wasn't great, but they made it work.
College student rentals are like that though. Like you have to hit that move-in deadline no matter what. And sometimes there's just not enough hands to go around when you're trying to get all these units cleaned up and painted and ready for new students to move in and stuff like that. So I can understand that. Like we obviously try to avoid having people move in until a unit is 100% ready, but there's also, I mean, like clockwork, within a few days of someone moving in, they're always going to come in and find a couple little things that need to be addressed. And we know it. It happens pretty much every move-in. We expect it. And at the end of the day, like we can go through and test every light switch and light fixture and every faucet and the garbage disposal and the appliances and everything else. More than likely, somebody's still going to find something that's not quite right because they're physically living in the space 24/7. You're not there. You're flipping switches in and out, on your way out the door as you're doing work or whatever. They're going to find little things along the way. So that's just kind of something that we come to expect.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Back to form submission question.
Okay.
Let's do, Question from Theo. Would you recommend having tenants have their own rental insurance?
Yeah, whenever possible. This is going to be another one where you've got to check your state laws. Some states will not allow you to mandate that a tenant has renter's insurance. And in those states, obviously, you can't mandate it. The way our lease is written, I believe, is that we require tenants to have renter's insurance as well as name us as an additional insured on the policy. But New York State is one of those states where you can't require it. So it's one of those lease clauses that largely it's in there. Like, we want our tenants to have renter's insurance, but ultimately it's up to them to get that coverage and do what they need to do to get the coverage. I hate seeing it when tenants don't have it, because almost inevitably something's going to happen, and it always seems to impact the tenants that didn't spend that money on the renter's insurance, which sucks. But we've dealt with it before where we told tenants, like, listen, if you had renter's insurance, you would be covered right now, but because you don't, you're
Yeah.
responsible for this damage or this, whatever. And it doesn't have to be on purpose. Like, we've had tenants accidentally overflow a kitchen sink, starting a sink full of dishes, and then walk out of the room to grab the baby that's crying. Now the sink is overflowing and you've damaged the apartment below you. I understand it's
Yeah.
an accident, but you're still responsible for the repair. So
Yeah.
renter's insurance is always a good idea.
Well,
It's not
there's
expensive. Just do
a
it.
business idea for you. You should link up with a renter insurance broker and take a nice affiliate cut for recommending a provider.
Oh,
Put it right in your lease.
believe it or not, our management software is already doing that on our behalf, but that's another
Oh,
story for another day. We're going to be looking at different management softwares, because it's gotten to the point where the software that we're currently using is they're marketing to not only to us, they're marketing to our tenants in the form of renter's insurance and some other stuff.
yeah,
And now they're marketing to our clients as well. And I'm like, we're done here. We're done.
yeah,
I'm done. I don't want you interfering in my business. I don't want you contacting my clients or my tenants ever.
right.
That's not your job. Stay out of my business. Like, it's overreach at some
That
point.
is,
So
yeah, that is not a
it's
good
crazy. Yeah,
situation.
it's crazy. I'm not going to mention the name of the company here, but I mean, it's not hard to figure out who we use.
Yeah.
Just bad
All right.
business.
Yeah. No, that's a pretty quick way to lose lose customers.
They've been making a lot of moves in the last year or so that have me concerned and have me looking elsewhere for my software needs. Not to
Yeah.
mention, like, and I know this is a diversion, but like, talking about property management softwares and scaling and growing, we don't use just one software in our company. We use probably a combination of 10 different pieces of software, each one doing some aspect of the business. And making all of those things talk to each other is a nightmare. And our management
Mhm.
software is the worst. It won't talk to anything practically. So
Yeah.
that's the main reason we're looking to go, is simply because we want to start automating a lot of different things in our business, and we can't do it on our current platform.
Yeah. No, that believe me, I see that stuff just working for RentPrep and seeing
Absolutely.
what the competitors have and the different platforms. So for sure. Okay. I feel like this one kind of ties right into what we were talking about, at least with Joseph's question a couple minutes ago. Why don't we do
Mhm.
this question from Bird? Hello, what qualifications should new landlords look for in hiring a property management company?
Ooh. I'm going to plug myself here. Give me 1 second. I just got to get the. Let's see. Can I do a screen share?
I think I look a little tan against this beige wall.
Let's see here. Window.
Tan,
This window.
tan enough.
All right, cool. So if you go to what'sdrewup2.com, which is one of my websites, you can actually grab this right here, grab a free copy of the 10 questions you have to ask before hiring a property manager. I'm not going to sit and rehash the whole thing here. It's I think it's like a 6 or 7 page PDF document that will really help you to understand how to interview a property management company, to make sure that you're working with a company that is not just out there trying to scam you, not just out there trying to take your money, because there are a ton of unlicensed, unethical, immoral property management companies out there that are honestly, they're screwing landlords and tenants both. And you don't want to trust one of your largest assets or several of your largest assets to a company that's going to do that. So spending the time to interview a property manager before you hire them is absolutely 100% worth the time that you take. So go grab that guide. That's going to help you a lot.
Was this the guide, Andrew, that we had included a few months ago in the newsletter for RentPrep, or was that a different?
It might have been. It might have been. I don't remember if the guide has ever been included in the newsletter or not. I think we might have done. I know we did a video on analyzing rental property, and we included that deal analysis spreadsheet.
Okay,
which, by
was
the way, that can also be found on the same website if somebody's looking for that. It's the link right above the 10 questions to ask a property manager. It's right above that. So either way, if you're looking for information on how to interview a property manager, or you're looking for information on whether or not your rental property is going to make you money, both of them are right there.
Yeah, and I know as far as as far as RentPrep goes, we've got a bunch of resources like that too, calculators, eviction cost calculator that doesn't give you an exact cost of what your eviction is going to be, but it gets you to start thinking about, here's how much rent I'm missing out on. Here's how long it's going to take to maybe go to court. Here's these costs. Here's that cost. So that's on our website under resources as well, along with a bunch of different blog articles that have, NOI calculators in them and, everything you could think of if you search it on the site.
Yeah, definitely. There's a ton of resources on there. A ton of resources. I don't even know how many blog articles at this point, but I know that every podcast gets a blog article. So there's at least 413. And there'll be a 414th next week. So, but yeah, there's a ton of resources on the RentPrep website. In addition to the Facebook group, obviously.
Right. We've been cranking, I think for the last couple of years, we've been doing 2 podcasts a month, and we've been doing two unique niche video topics a month that you've been filming, and we've been pumping those out to YouTube. And then we've been publishing 1 blog post a month and revising blog posts that are existing. We've been doing, or not 1 blog post a month, sorry, 1 blog post a week. So from a content perspective, if we don't have, to our viewers out there, if we don't have the answer, or we don't have something out on the content yet, feel free to message us.
Yeah, holler. We'll write it up.
We're interested in whether it's a video, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a blog article that our team comes up, writes. We'd love to hear from you.
We're always looking for fresh content ideas. Always looking for fresh content ideas. Because there's always something new and exciting happening out there. So if somebody's looking for a topic that we haven't covered yet, let us know, and we'll look into doing the research and getting either a blog post or a podcast or a video or something done on that topic.
It is crazy to still think that, even with how much content we push out, there's always more to cover. There's always new things that are coming up. There's always, whether it's stories, just different topics, trends, technology, there's just so much to cover. So
every day there's something new and exciting in the world of property. I got to show you, I'm going to post this on the Facebook group later, but I'm going to give you a sneak peek photo look here. This is it's hard to see, but that's an electrical outlet that is wired out the side of a light fixture. Just free hanging there. Let me see if I have the other picture.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this one shows the.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, just hanging on a ceiling. So
that's insane.
I'm going to post that in the Facebook group later. But there's never a shortage of things to talk about in the real estate world. There's always something going on. I mean, everybody's always at a different point in their investing cycle, and people are always looking for different things at different times. But no, you're exactly right. Like the amount of resources available on the RentPreps. It's funny how often I will go to do research on something, and the first page that pops up when I Google something real estate related is a RentPrep blog article. So the SEO has been very, very good lately, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, let's move on. Let's get to, speaking of Facebook, let's jump back into this. One's a little bit long, so bear with me.
Okay.
Question from Ruth here. Applicant did not have driver's license for government issued picture ID requirement. I told her state ID is acceptable. She asked if passport is acceptable. I said yes. She stated that she was waiting for her passport to be sent her passport and sent a photo a few days later. I noticed that the date of the issue was more than a year ago and that expiration date was only 9 years from the issue date. The State Department website states that the evidence is of a fraudulent ID. I notified the applicant that passport would be verified in this with the State Department. Upon checking with the State Department, they stated that the ID was counterfeit. I then simply told the applicant that we were unable to proceed with the application when she asked why. I did not respond, thinking she would obviously know that her ID was counterfeit. And then several days went by and she asked again. So Ruth is asking, do I simply not respond or tell her that the State Department said that the passport was counterfeit, but will not pursue a criminal investigation at this time? I don't want someone to be vindictive.
Yeah. And I'm pulling up an adverse action notice here just so that I can throw it up on the screen.
Beautiful.
This has the old address for. Oh no, you guys are on Como Park now, right?
Yeah.
That is the new address. I was just looking at it and thought that we had the wrong address for you guys on here.
No,
so our policy is once an applicant is denied, we send an adverse action letter, regardless of whether or not that tenant had a credit and background check run with us. Make sure I'm sharing the right window. So we just issue out a simple adverse action letter. The tenant's name and current address goes there. The date goes there. The tenant's name goes there. Thank you for your recent rental application. After a review of the provided information, we find that we are unable to accept your application at this time. In New York State, that's all I'm required to say. I don't have to give any more of a reason beyond that. Beyond that, if checked, this decision was based in whole or in part on the information provided to us in a consumer report or investigative consumer report prepared for us by a consumer reporting agency, blah, 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 blah. That's RentPrep. And that's the adverse action letter that we're currently using, and we've been using it for years. We did used to use a letter that specified the reason that we were denying someone's application, and we were advised by our attorney to stop doing that. And his reasoning to me was basically, don't give anyone any more ammunition than they would already have when it comes to a fair housing concern. You're denying an application because they provided you with fake documentation. It's not a fair housing issue. They provided fake documentation, and that's absolutely a valid reason to deny. You're being lied to. It's a valid reason to deny a rental application. That said, I've never had a conversation with someone after telling them that they were denied for an application where they didn't immediately try to justify this, that, and the other thing. So we just don't have those conversations anymore. We mail the adverse action letter out to everyone who gets a denial, whether we ran the credit and background or not. And more often than not, people know why they were denied. I agree with Ruth. More often than not, people know the reason that they were denied. And we never hear from those people again. Yeah. Once in a while, we'll get somebody that calls and wants a more in-depth discussion. And typically at that point, we send them to RentPrep so that they can get a copy of their credit and background check. And if there's nothing on their credit and background check that would be a reason for denial, then they know that whatever documents they submitted must not have been accurate or forthright or whatever the case may be. So that's fake documentation is becoming a real problem in property management world right now. And we did a video. I don't know if it's live yet or
not. I know that I was actually about to, I'm not sure if it's published yet. I was about to bring that up when we were talking about just everything new that's been happening with technology and everything like that. You know, as cool as the new technology has been getting, like, that also means that the technology's been getting good for the people that are trying to fake their way into obtaining properties or getting placed in properties and whatnot. And so, you know,
that video is live, by the way. It's up on youtube.com. Here, let's do another screen share. Why not? We have it available to us. Let's see on the, still, there we go. Everything just flashed on my screen for a second. So it's actually the most recent video was just posted about 2 weeks ago, how to spot fake pay stubs. That's a really interesting video. not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty proud of that one. We went through and analyzed a few fake pay stubs, and then we actually built a fake pay stub live in that video, and I show you how easy it is to create some of this fake documentation that's floating around out there now. It used to be that it was just the emotional support animal letters that were getting faked, and now we're seeing pay stubs, we're seeing ESA letters, I had somebody try to pass a fake tax document off the other day. Obviously, people are out there trying to fake identification. This is a big problem in the property management industry. It's not even just our industry. It's any sort of lend lease industry is having the same problem. So banks are dealing with this. We're dealing with this. Auto dealerships are dealing with this. Basically, anybody where they're selling a product or leasing a product in some capacity where they're doing a financial analysis on someone, we're all dealing with these problems right now.
Yeah. And I mean, this speaks to, and I work for RentPrep, but just plugging RentPrep a little bit more there.
Yeah, you have to, right?
You got to just running background checks with human FCRA certified screeners that are looking over the reports, verifying that the information is correct. Technology, like you said, is getting so good that it can be easy for people to fake their way to get through to things. And our screeners see these different tactics and ways that tenants are faking their way through, and they pick up on it, and they're able to help make informed decisions. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely
easy to plug right there.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we're going to start doing the payroll, the income verification through RentPrep, because we're getting to a point where we're starting to see more and more and more of the fake documentation, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger problem in our
for sure
in our business. Sorry, I'm just trying to double check and make sure that the live is still live, because I had a blip on my screen during the filming here, but it looks like we're good.
I just went back over to it. Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, we should be in good shape. And then worst case scenario, we have the recording anyway. And that's on StreamYard servers. Beautiful.
All right. Speaking of Ruth's question, I think there was a question regarding some adverse action. I think it's right here. Question from Tammy.
Yep.
So this question's from Tammy. Hello. I had a couple apply for my unit. Her background came back great. His had a lot of stuff, eviction, low credit, etc. So I denied them.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to send both an adverse action letter since they're both going to be on the lease, or just the applicant that denial was for? And then it looks like they wrote really quick. It looks like they wrote edit. So they added to what they had asked. He said he had a collection that was paid when I pre-screened, but never said he was evicted. I found that on the report.
Okay.
And that's basically, that's the question.
Okay. Yeah, I would just issue an adverse action to anybody. Our policy, and it's more just a blanket policy so that we don't, if you have to have exceptions to policies, then it's a poorly written policy. So our blanket policy is anybody that gets or anybody that completes an application with us and pays their application fee is getting an adverse action letter from us. Whether we ran a credit and background or didn't run a credit and background, didn't get to that stage in the process, every single time they get an adverse action letter. And then it just covers us and we don't have to worry about it. So for the cost of a stamp, which is, I don't know, 40, 44 cents. I'm not sure what a stamp's running nowadays. Just mail it, The one thing that I've never really been able to get a clear answer on as to whether or not digitally delivering an adverse action letter is considered sufficient. And I don't know, maybe Josh, you might know, or you might know somebody there at RentPrep that can answer that question, but I'm not sure if digital delivery is considered sufficient or not.
That's a good question. I've done everything. I've had people write in and ask me questions about how to, where's your template? How do you fill it out? How do you do this? I've had all that, but I've never, that's a good one. I'm going to jot that one down, and I'm going to make a note, and maybe I can post to the Facebook. I can post to the Facebook community with that one.
Yeah, there might even be something like in FCRA law that says that you can't
Yeah.
do it. So I'm genuinely curious as to whether or not that's something that
Yeah,
would be feasible or not.
I can check with Katie Broche, who's now was our senior screener. She's now in she's in the compliance department too. So
Congratulations,
she
Katie.
yeah, she does a little bit. She wears multiple hats now, but is
Mhm.
starting to really up her game as far as just the compliance aspect goes of everything here at RentPrep. So
That's cool. She's been there
I'll
for
ask
a
her.
while too.
Yeah. Yeah, our team's been we haven't had much turnover. We've
Mhm.
been everyone's been kind of rolling for the last couple of years, which is good.
That is kind of nice.
Yeah.
If someone needs an adverse action letter, there's one in the resources tab on the RentPrep website. If you go to landlord forms and you
Hmm.
scroll down to the form package here,
Yeah.
there is an adverse action letter in the form pack that's available on the RentPrep website.
Yeah,
And
and if
is Josh, is this the
that
free package or is this the paid
yeah,
package?
so that one will be free if you scroll down. If you just click the CTA, it brings you down to the bottom of the page, and you'll just put in your name, your email address, or I think it's just your first, your last name, or wait, your first name and your email address, and then you can select you can select whatever there. You can select all forms or more forms, and regardless of what you kind of select there, if once you
Mhm.
hit that, an email will be triggered to your inbox, and you will have to just verify that it is you that's requesting the forms, and you'll click verify, and then you will get a link to the Dropbox folder of all of the forms in there for free.
Yeah, and I think that that adverse action letter that I'm using is literally a RentPrep template that I just
Yeah.
changed my address on the top of it. It's nothing overly complicated. So,
Yeah. And we've gone back through and updated the forms to the point where they are very much pretty easy to edit, even without Adobe Acrobat, Premiere, whatever.
mhm,
They majority of the forms are very editable for you. So, like we say, they are just templates.
mhm.
If you live in a specific state, obviously, refer to your state guidelines and regulations, and lawyers and stuff like that when you're making changes to the forms or doing anything like that. But we do have the basic templates for you in there.
Yeah, well, and it's worth noting, like if you're going to download any sort of a legal form from the internet, but be it a lease or an adverse action form or whatever, you should have a competent attorney that understands landlord tenant law in your state review it
Yeah.
to make sure that it's compliant. And keep in mind that landlord tenant law moves. It's not a fixed thing. Like laws are changing, and especially now in the 2020s and onward, I'm seeing a lot of legislative updates in the last few years.
Hmm.
So just because something was legal last time you rented out an apartment does not necessarily mean it's legal the next time you rent out the apartment. So that's worth noting, is making sure that you review your documents from time to time to make sure that they're still compliant with whatever the rules are in your area.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. Let's bounce back to form submission. Um, let's do question from Ron. I feel like we really never talked about this. What is your current experience with local government and contractor resources? You're smiling, Andrew.
It depends on when you ask me this question, what kind of an answer you're going to get. Um, what is your current experience with local government and contractor resources?
Oh wait, and then I didn't see this part. It looks like he also wrote in New Jersey, it seems almost everything is understaffed, overworked, or unavailable, or worse than a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I have to parse this because it's an active situation we're dealing on, and I can't say too awful much. But I have an inspection coming up with a city of Buffalo inspector that was supposed to take place pre-COVID, and they're so short-staffed that they're just getting back to us to do that inspection now.
You're kidding.
It was an inspection that was paid for in 20. You think COVID kicked off in March 2020, February, March 2020. So this
Yeah.
was paid for in like December of 19, and then it was weather delayed, and then COVID happened, and we're just getting back around to doing the inspection now.
Oh my God.
So, and that's Buffalo's a tough market to do stuff in. It's tough to get a hold of building inspectors. It's tough to get clear answers. It's a little bit tough to work in the city of Buffalo as a property manager, as someone who's trying to improve properties, as a contractor. Buffalo is a tough spot to work. Right up the road in the city of Lockport, I can call the building inspections department and talk to the chief building inspector just about any day. Like if I call and have a building code question, I can call him and say, hey, how do you interpret this? And he'll give me his interpretation. So it's very different. It's very municipality by municipality, I would say. If we're only talking local government, I think that's the biggest issue. I think in New York is we have a contractor's license in every municipality here. So Lockport, you have to have a license. Buffalo, you have to have a license. Niagara Falls, you have to have a license. You have to buy all these licenses for all these different municipalities, and they're anywhere between $250 and $500 a piece for the most part. So you get feed to death on your licensing and your permits and stuff like that. New Jersey, on the other hand, has one state contractor's license. So once you are a contractor in New Jersey, you're a contractor in New Jersey. You're not a contractor in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And then when you go to Newark, New Jersey, you need a new license. Versus here, that's exactly how it is. Lockport's different than Buffalo, different than the Falls, different than North Tonawanda. And it just makes it a lot more difficult to do business in this state as a whole, in my opinion. As far as contractors, yeah, everybody's overworked and understaffed. There's never enough manpower to go around on the contracting side of the house. And it's been like that for years. We're just feeling it now because a lot of the older, more experienced, more skilled tradesmen that we had out there retired during COVID. They picked up their tools and said, I'm done. I'm going home. You guys can play in the play box. And we lost a lot of knowledge and we lost a lot of experience during that time frame. And I don't know. I think we understand it because of the industry that we work in, but I don't think most people realize just how few people are going into the trades, which is a big problem because we're not going to have people in the trades if we don't have people going into the trades. And it's wonderful that everybody wants to sit and be a YouTuber and a streamer and a content creator and a this and a that and the other thing. But we also still need people to make sure that when you flush the toilet flushes.
Right. No,
so
that makes
sense.
I'm big
on supporting the trades that way.
Yeah. Also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but during COVID too, I feel like a lot of projects that maybe were going to be executed just got completely put on hold. So not only did you have contractors retiring, the older contractors saying, hey, I don't even want to deal with this. It's not worth the risk. Like I feel like landlords and different, property managers were putting stuff on hold and waiting for COVID to finish for the projects to get done.
Yeah.
And then you come out of it and where's the labor's down,
right?
The resources are down to do the job, and then the projects are up.
Yeah, the interest rates are higher. There are a lot of projects that were made sense pre-COVID that just don't make sense post-COVID because of the cost of the job. We actually looked at a house. We almost bought a house directly across the street from the house that I grew up in. Right before COVID hit, and it was a full gut and redo. We were going to have to do everything in this house. There were some hardwoods that were savable and some of the original woodwork that was savable, but it was a shell other than that.
Right.
And we were outbid on it. And honestly, it was a blessing in disguise because like the week after that, COVID really hit and set in. And at that point, we would have been like everybody else. We would have been fighting to get contractors. We would have been fighting against not being able to get building materials. We would have been paying an ultra premium for everything. It would have been a disaster. So yeah, that's a project that pre-COVID, it made sense. Post-COVID, not so much. And that happened a lot.
No, for sure. That was a crazy couple of years. Just thinking back to it. All right, let's do, I know we've got about 15 minutes left here and we still have some Facebook questions. So, let's do this one. Question from Deborah. In the process of my tenants moving out without notice, they started a fire in my rental. The house is now inhabitable due to fire, smoke, and water damage. If the renters do not move all of their damaged and undamaged belongings, some very large, who is fiscally responsible for removing them? Would it be legally and or morally wrong to expect or change them them security deposit to remove the last of their belongings. So she's trying to include the belongings and the moving of the belongings within the security deposit. Is she's trying to take that out of the security deposit is what she's asking.
In the process of my tenants moving out without notice, they started a fire in my rental. They started a fire in the rental. Am I reading it right?
That's the way I'm reading it. Is they were ticked off and they started a fire, and then now the whole house is destroyed.
I mean, this is an interesting one. So the tenant started a fire in a rental. So we had a fire in a rental a few years back that was not caused by the tenants. Wasn't caused by us either. It was caused by a squirrel chewing on a wire. And we ended up, both tenants had to vacate. There was some property damage to their belongings, and there was a lot of property damage to the actual home itself. We eventually ended up with both of those tenants signing off on releases so that we could remove their stuff from the property. But it was a very long, drawn out process, and our attorney was involved in it. The process. I mean, if they started the fire, I can't imagine any scenario where they're getting any amount of their security deposit back. I'm hoping that they have renter's insurance that you can go after. But as far as who's fiscally responsible for removing their stuff, if their stuff is damaged beyond repair and they're refusing to remove it, I would think that at some point the stuff would just be considered abandoned and you could throw it out because they're no longer a tenant. So, like, I understand that that's still their stuff, but it sounds like they're abandoning their stuff.
So I guess, yeah, maybe what if we removed the fire part of it and just said, what if we just said these tenants just moved out without notice and left their stuff? Okay. Can Deborah deduct the cost of moving the goods?
Yeah. So in New York, you have to store the tenant's belongings for what's considered a reasonable amount of time. That's not technically defined in statute, but it's generally understood to be 30 days.
Okay.
So what we do is we store the tenant stuff for 30 days, either in the unit or in a storage unit, depending on the situation. And then after 30 days, we have the right to dispose of it however we see fit, whether that be in the garbage, taking it to a recycling center, reselling it on Facebook Marketplace, whatever we want to do, it's on us at that point because the property would be considered abandoned.
Okay.
The fire may change that though.
Oh,
I'm not sure because there's a lot of, just because there's a fire in a property does not mean that that's automatically the end of the tenancy. There's a lot that goes into it. You would need to know what your lease says. You would need to know what the laws are in your state and things of that nature. Deborah needs to contact an attorney is really what it boils down to here, because anytime you're dealing with a situation like this, it's going to be a very, very high emotional situation, and going between the landlord and the tenant probably is not the best move here. Having an intermediary that is emotionally disconnected, I think, is probably the best case scenario here. Removing the fire from the scenario altogether, though, yeah, you would definitely be able to remove the tenant's belongings from the property once they're considered abandoned. You would just need to know what is considered abandoned in your state.
Yeah, this is a funky one. I wish we had Deborah on here to give us some insight, because the fact that it seems like they just started a fire and then left the property, I don't
just really threw a lit match and a gas on the way out the door, or what?
Yeah, I don't know the whole story, but all right. I think those were a couple good answers. I mean, that's all we can do. All right, got time for a couple more here. All right, let's do a question from Andrew. It's another Facebook question, theoretical question for everyone. You find good tenants, sign a 1-year lease, and the house starts off clean, new paint, new carpets, new appliances, et cetera, et cetera. Let's say you go there and do a check in 6 months and the house is very, all capitalized, dirty. greasy kitchen appliances, fingerprints on walls, et cetera, et cetera. Here's my question. What can I really do about it? I can't call them slobs. I can't tell them they need to hire a house cleaner. I can't start cleaning it myself. What do you do about it other than not renew the lease as it runs out? So doesn't seem like really a hypothetical question. This really seems like something that actually happened.
This sounds like it might be happening.
Yeah.
I would issue a lease violation letter. So we have in our lease that, good housekeeping is expected of everyone, and you have to clean up after yourselves, and the house needs to be free of noxious odors and smells and free of debris. Like, you can't have just piled up garbage sitting around and stuff like that, because obviously that leads to health and safety concerns and vermin and stuff like that. So that's probably what I would do. I would start with an adverse action. So nope, not an adverse action letter. Start with a lease violation letter. And then from there, if they don't respond to the lease violation letter, at that point, you may be in a situation where you can non-renew the tenancy, or there might be some other options that you have available to you. But realistically speaking, if you point out that somebody they need to clean up the unit, most people are going to be like, okay, we're going to do something. And then if it doesn't go far enough, maybe you need to start considering other options at that point.
Yeah. To piggyback off that one, as far as so it seems like you went over there a couple months in and saw that it was disgusting. Mm-hmm. How much, just for the viewers and for myself, like how much notice would you have to give a tenant when you need to go over to the property? Do you need to give a tenant notice when you're coming mid-lease to look at a property? How long in advance do you need to do that? Can you do it through text message? How does that work?
So again, that's going to be a state law type of a situation. In New York State, we do have to provide notice before we go in unless it's an emergency. So like if there's a flood in the house, that's an emergency. If we think someone may be critically injured and can't get to the door, that's an emergency. Trying to think of other situations that would be a fire, obviously, would be an emergency. Things that would be non-emergency, I need to change the flapper in the toilet. I need to change the smoke detector batteries. Those would be non-emergency. So for anything non-emergency, you do have to provide notice. And in New York, I believe it's 24 hours notice before you enter a unit. And it might be different downstate in New York City. I don't remember off the top of my head, but different states and different municipalities may have different rules on that. So you're going to want to double check to see what it is in your area. Most areas, it's usually like 24 to 48 hours notice. We typically will send a text message to let somebody know that we need to access their unit so that we have a written record of it without going out there and posting it on the door. Generally speaking, we don't have issues just using text messaging. Sometimes we will have someone that's non-responsive to phones or text messaging or something like that. And at that point, we'll actually go out and physically post a notice on their door. And we use a software called Z Inspector that actually we use whenever we're doing move-in, move-outs or notices or whatever to do before and after photos for like maintenance. And it takes time and date stamped and GPS stamped location on the photo. So if we post a notice on the door and say, we're going to be here at 2:00 tomorrow, and we post it at 1:54 today, yes, we gave you a proper 24 hours notice. And we literally have the proof in the form of a photo that was taken as soon as the notice was posted. So more often than not, text message is fine for our purposes. Most of our tenants are fine with that. But if you do get somebody that is being kind of difficult or does not want you to enter the unit, at that point, we would actually post the door so that we can prove, no, we did what we were supposed to. You don't have a leg to stand on here by not allowing us into the apartment. So,
yeah, no, that makes sense. Good answer. All right. I think as far as questions go, it is 1:55. I think we should wrap it up right here. I know we have a couple of long, we've got a couple of long questions that I don't want to just give partial attention to. We'll just keep them on the list
we'll scroll them to next month
goes. But yeah, I think we're good there.
Cool. Very good. Well, that was exciting. That was a pretty good AMA session, I would say.
Yeah, it felt good. A lot of energy. Felt good to be back.
Yeah, right. The questions have been getting better and better too. Like the questions that people are submitting have been getting better and better. And if you do want to submit questions for these AMA sessions, the best way to do that is go on the Facebook group and ask. Facebook.com/groups/RentPrep. You can join it's I think over 13,000 people in the Facebook group now.
We're very close. I think we're at 13,997. We're very close to 14,000. Yeah.
That's pretty exciting. So there's a lot of resources, even in that group. We talk about the website, but even in that group, there's 14,000 people that are all there looking to help. So ask your question there. You'll probably get responses well before you get on the podcast or on the videos or anything like that. But that's also where we pull questions from. We get ready usually a couple weeks in advance for these. We'll post a document where people can ask their questions, and then we take the best of those and throw them into these videos. So the best way to ask an AMA question is to be involved in the Facebook group.
Yeah, and I believe if you're subscribed to our RentPrep newsletter, which you can do right on our website, there's multiple areas where you can subscribe to the newsletter. If you are signed up for that, you also will get an email. I believe it's 2 weeks before the next AMA, and that's where you'll have the form submission. The form submission questions come from there. Ashley sends that out, and then honestly, there's rarely a question from a landlord that's posted to the group that does not get an answer from somebody. I rarely see a bare question in there that doesn't have somebody giving you some sort of insight. So
there are a lot of really smart landlords in that group, by the way. Like, we have some real smart people in the RentPrep for Landlords group, people that have been around a long time, been doing this, for a lot longer than I have, even, that they just have such a wealth of knowledge and experience that it's silly not to draw from it. Like, it's, it's always nice to grab those experiences from others so you don't make the same mistake yourself. Actually, I met with a client. We'll leave it at this. I met with a client earlier today, and we were talking about a situation at one of his properties. And he made a comment, something along the lines of, the tuition for this particular mistake will not be free. So anytime you can learn from someone else's mistakes without spending the money, that's a good situation to find yourself in.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Josh, thank you for joining me. This was a lot of fun. We'll get the next one set up for October. If you're not already in the Facebook group, go ahead and join the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/RentPrep. And join us for our next AMA. Don't forget, we post podcasts every other week. We also post YouTube videos every other week as well. Tons of content coming out from RentPrep, and always you can check out those resources at rentprep.com. Josh, anything to add?
No, it's I got to start pulling the Halloween decorations out.
By the next time, it's going to be snow flying. By the time we get to the AMA.
Oh, don't say that. I'm going back down to San Antonio.
I might have to follow you. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.